Good morning, Pharrell. Are you with me?
I am. Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm grateful. Grateful to be here. Grateful for this opportunity. And just trying to live the dream in the middle of a nightmare.
Yeah, I hear you. I
Yeah.
hear you. Pharrell, for people who maybe are living under a rock and don't know who you are, I'm gonna share your list. You're a man of many titles. A
Please
singer.
don't.
Yeah.
Please
Oh
don't.
no, I gotta do it because it is so impressive. Singer, rapper, music producer, 13-time Grammy winner. Let's just see how red we can get you. Entrepreneur, fashion designer, movie producer. Behind that, amazing Oscar nominated Hidden Figures. You're a philanthropist, you're an innovator, and maybe most importantly, you're a husband and a daddy. Um, you've got lots of titles and lots of talents, but today we're here to talk about evening the odds, which I know is something really important to you. And so, can you kick us off by just sharing what does evening the odds mean to you?
Well, um, you know, being considered a minority, right? Uh, you know, being African diaspora, African American, the odds are often stacked against you. Um, And when you go and look and do the history, you realize that it's systemically purposeful disadvantages for people of color and minorities of the like. And so, the odds, when we refer to that word odds, we're talking about the statistics, um, the numbers that are just stacked against you. And so, what we want to do is even the odds. And we think the way to even the odds is by looking at the three biggest systemic issues with people of color, which is disproportionate access to healthcare, disproportionate access to education, and disproportionate access to representation. Um, if you think about it, are the founding fathers, right? They were founders, they were entrepreneurs, right? Who decided that they no longer wanted to pay taxes to a British parliament where they had no representation. So they decided to go against that. Um, and they said, hey, we'll go to war for it. Looks a lot like the movement that you see in the streets now. In fact, our founding fathers and their groups were tearing down the statues of, they were actually tearing down the statues of King George. And our Boston Tea Party, uh, they were burning the tea up in the harbor. Sounds a lot like the movement of the youth today. Um, but that's the thing, that representation is very important. And so representation, not just like on Capitol Hill, but just having representation for you as a citizen. And so when we look at those three pillars, education, healthcare, and representation, it's just trying to create organizations that will, help us change that dynamic and shift the paradigm. And so uh, for us, even in the odds, we started with Yellow, which is our educational initiative. And I don't want to like fast forward past the questions, but that's, even in the odds is the slogan for Yellow. Yellow's not only my favorite color, but it's the color of curiosity. It's the color of the solar plex. It's the color of adrenaline. It's also the color of our day star that gives our planet photosynthesis and also give us human beings vitamin D. It's a good color. So we felt like that would be, um, that could be the beacon of hope for education. I think that there's some things that are broken in the education system right now. So, but that's for me, that's even in the odds. And for everybody out there, I'm sorry. Sometimes my answers tend to be a little long.
No.
Um, as a musician, so I kind of speak, uh, you know, metaphorically, but I don't want to
Oh, it's
overstate. I just
you're a
just
poet,
passionate.
and it's this is why I wanted you to come speak today. Is because I think in this crazy year that is 2020, and we've seen greater awareness and this so-called national reckoning around race and equity issues. And a lot of leaders at the top of government and the top of our biggest companies have been, scrambling to figure out how to react appropriately. And there's been a lot of talk, but I think what's meaningful about you is you've flown into action, and you mentioned it, but you've flown into action along each of those pillars that you mentioned, health and education and representation. So for those who don't know, though, can you say more about what Yellow is?
So Yellow is our educational initiative, and we think that there are some issues with education. For example, the current way that children are taught is primarily based on the submodalities of like visual and auditory, and then there's also test taking. But you know, everybody processes information differently. Some people are visual learners. Some people are more auditory learners. Some people are actually kinesthetic learners. And you say, well, how is feeling a thing? But if you think about it, people who work with their hands in factories next to conveyor belts or learn by processes and methods, that's a kinesthetic learner. And so we think that, a real issue is we need modality assessment, sensory modality assessment programs at a young age for kids to figure out how they process information and then hopefully develop, curriculums based on that. Um, you know, it- like the word remedial is not really fair. Just because a child learns differently doesn't mean that their self-esteem should be stunted at a young age and think that they have a learning disability when I'll go on and say that like, probably 75% of the world's most successful Fortune 500 CEOs are ADD, are ADHD. How do you think they can keep up with so many things so well? And they probably process information very differently. I'm pretty sure they don't all process information the same, you know, because you were dyslexic. You probably had an amazing auditory propensity to comprehend information, and it's probably made you one of the best CEOs ever. We think that you know children of color and minorities deserve that same kind of understanding. I know that I was one of the ones that slipped through the cracks, and that was because of my teachers. My teachers saw something in me in Virginia. You know, when I look over my shoulder and I look at my constellation, all those stars are my teachers that saw something in me beyond my test scores. I was a CD, and I don't mean compact disc. I was a CDE student.
Yeah.
But my teachers saw something in me, and in Virginia, there was no burgeoning, blossoming, music industry, but they knew there was something out there for me. Imagine all the kids out there that may not have had the same kind of success with their teachers, and they fall in between the cracks. You know, it's so for me, I just want to change that narrative. I mean, look, if you allow me to pray tell, you know, in the neighborhoods that I grew up in, right, the housing projects, right, we were projects. That's why they call them that. We were projects, and we were the project. And if you think about it, the drug dealer, what drug dealer do you know walks around who's walking around with a calculator in his pocket? He's not. But he knows every dollar that he's owed. He knows every dollar that is out there in the market, right? That's somebody who is good with numbers. Could have gotten, could have headed toward Wall Street.
Yeah.
What about the guy that is in the kitchen in someone's kitchen with the right amount of water, the right amount of drugs? Sorry, you guys, but just bear with me because this is the reality. Right amount of water, right amount of drugs, right amount of like whatever things that they're putting into the drugs to, prepare to distribute. That's somebody that could have been like, a chemist at GlaxoSmithKline or Pfizer or something. They just didn't have the teacher there to say, hey, you have a propensity and maybe you learn things differently, but you have a natural knack for some of these other things and to properly guide it? Or what about the guys that are like, who make money shooting people? And I know this is throwing you guys off, but man, that's just somebody who should have probably ended up in our armed forces, but because you didn't do that and you ended up doing something else, and because you didn't make the connection in school, or your teachers didn't make the connection in school. And we have some amazing teachers, by the way. I'm just saying the ones who slipped through the cracks. Because someone didn't see the propensity in that child and redirect them in the right way, they become monsters. You see their mugshots and you judge them. But imagine if we had a system that figured out how children assess these children, to figure out how they process information, and then figure out the things that they're interested in life and send them in the right direction. You know, then they
And
would, we'd have some success. I'm sorry, that was a very long answer. I know
no,
people are probably clicking off right now.
I hope not. And I wanted to ask. I mean, you're launching Yellow in Virginia,
Yes.
your hometown, my hometown, and but more than being a hometown, Virginia carries sort of deeper significance for you that I didn't realize until Time Magazine gave you an issue to curate in August, and you wrote beautifully about why Virginia is so significant. So I was hoping you would share that.
Well, Virginia is where it all started. If you think about it. Um, Again, being African American, going to school as a little boy, they taught us about Jamestown. You know, they just didn't tell us the whole thing. And it's really interesting because when you think about the stuff that has happened to us as a culture, you know, they give you this Black History Month, and it was created by a black man, by the way. It's the shortest month of the year. But the way I look at it is it's all American history,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
Virginia is where it started. That's where the first, slave ships came in, is Virginia. And we're taught to think about it during February, not like year round. And so the significance to me is like, this is where it all started, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I love Virginia. I love Virginia because that's where I was born, but at the same time, there are issues. There are things that we need to fix. People don't realize, like, um, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but you know, it's where our capital is an amazing, beautiful place in Richmond, right? But it was also the capital of the Confederacy. Um, and I love my country, and I love my city, and I love my state for its progression. But I'm really in love with the untapped potential of everyone.
Yeah. There's something so beautiful about, if you can even the odds in Virginia, sort of where our atrocities and inequities sort of were birthed in this country, then we can do it
Mhm.
anywhere. I also,
Yeah.
particularly because this audience, the Milken Global Conference audience, are leaders in finance, CEOs of our biggest global corporations. Um, there was a way that you wrote in that Time article about the Virginia Company, which was sort of the private equity backed company that brought the first settlers to Jamestown and some of the first enslaved humans from Africa, that you started to write about the power of finance,
Mhm.
to using investment vehicles and finance, acknowledging sort of its role in creating where we are today, but how it can be a part of the solution.
Mhm.
Share more about your thinking and sort of how finance and corporate America has a role to play.
Well, they were founders, right? They were founders. The founders of this country were entrepreneurs. And the way to change things is to make it more equitable for everyone. Um, I think it's just a case of just good business, right? Um, One, the reason why we are set back are there are systemic, purposeful blockages and disadvantages for us. Redlining, and I mean, we can go on and on. But if all men are created equal, and this is the land of opportunity, right? You come to America. We were brought here, but our other a lot of our other brothers and sisters, or white brothers and sisters, and Asian brothers and sisters, in some cases, they've made the decision to come here. Even African brothers and sisters these days, they have decided to come here. We, as Black Americans, um, we were brought here, and it hadn't been equal. But we don't really have a voice because we don't really have uh, any. We don't have a piece of that American pie, that dream, that market share, and that's because we don't have a voice. If you think about it, our um, Jewish brothers and sisters, their dollar stays in their community for, about 28 to 30 days. Our Asian brothers and sisters, their dollar stays in their communities for about 20 days. The African American dollar stays in its community for about 6 hours because we don't own enough businesses.
Mm.
And when you think about it, our Jewish brothers and sisters, their children go to great schools, right? They have not just decent education, they have great education, right? They have great access to, and proportionate access to healthcare and really good medicine. And in terms of representation on Capitol Hill, they're good there, and they're also good when they need local representation. Someone gets in a car accident. The difference between having great representation and poor representation, or a public defendant, is the difference between going to jail and actually getting a slap on the wrist. We need that.
Yeah.
We need that. And if we could get that, then all of a sudden we have some representation on Capitol Hill that is really meaningful. Not just our Black caucuses, but I mean really, who do an amazing job, but I mean really meaningful representation. And it starts to change the conversation, and all of a sudden we actually have a voice. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, you know, um, more entrepreneurs of color. If you think about it, we, as African Americans, we are less than 1% VC founders and private equity um, funds, whereas our white brothers and sisters are 163%. Now, listen, math is not my thing. But I don't understand how you can do more than 100%. But it's literally north of 163%. But if we could just change that, man, and all of us would have a voice, it would be very different. It would be
Yeah.
very, very, very different.
You're right. 1% of venture capital dollars went to Black founders and entrepreneurs of all the,
Yeah.
billions of
And
dollars.
they don't have the mentorship either. When you think
Right.
about that 1%, if you ask them the thing that they really need, they really do need um, mentorship.
Yeah.
That's the strategic scaffolding that helps you. It's imagine saying, "Look, I want to ride a bike," right? And all of a sudden, someone gives you a bike with no training wheels and say, "Hey, you got to go down a hill, and you only have one shot to get it right."
Yeah.
That's your business, and we want to change that.
Well, you and Jay-Z this summer released a song called Entrepreneur, and the video is beautiful, and it features all sorts of Black community leaders and entrepreneurs and business leaders. Was that an effort to bring attention to this very issue?
Yes, it's actually something that I cannot announce now, but if any one of you really powerful CEOs and presidents and senior leadership position holders that are on this amazing platform today would like to have a conversation offline about this, there's an effort that we have that you guys will hear about later on the year. And I probably just got myself in trouble, but I couldn't help because you asked me about entrepreneur. But that's what it's about. It's because we feel like um, there's it's just high time in our country, man. This is a beautiful country, but it can be better, and we can do better.
Yeah.
We can do better. We just have to provide the opportunities for Black entrepreneurs, and I'm sure I can speak for us Black entrepreneurs. We're not looking for anything free. We just need an opportunity. We need a level playing field where it's really honestly equal opportunity.
Yeah. Well, So you've talked about finance and investment and education. I mean, you've been really busy. This summer, you also became sort of a leader and advocate on the public policy side around Juneteenth. And
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
know if it was the only time you traveled during lockdown, but I know you got on a plane and went to Virginia and stood by that governor, Governor Northam, when he
Yes.
announced Juneteenth as a state holiday. Now we're seeing other
Yes.
governors do it. What's your hope for Juneteenth, and why is it so significant and meaningful to you to have that recognized?
Well, just like I said to the governor when I said, "Listen, man, I don't travel, but if you would do this, because I was actually the person that asked him to do it. And I said, man, my wife is not playing any kind of games right now with the COVID situation. I know some people take it lightly, but my wife takes it heavily. And I said, but I'll get on the plane if you'd be willing to, put this bill forth. I'll stand right next to you. And I thought about it. He agreed. And the reason why it's important is because, man, Virginia is where it's all started. You know, when I was a kid, people didn't really talk about it as much outside of our community. But my point of view is, look, I love Fourth of July. My ancestors, my enslaved ancestors, fought in the war um, to support, the freedom of their white brothers. Because our white sisters weren't, they couldn't vote and they didn't really have many rights during that time either. But it was our white brothers. And so listen, man, I love red, white, and blue. Man, who doesn't love the Fourth of July cookout? But the difference is that not everybody was free. The Native Americans weren't necessarily free. Even though there were deals that were in place, they weren't being lived up to. Um, you know, the Trail of Tears was no walk in the park for our Native brothers and sisters. Our white sisters weren't free. It was really only for our white brothers, right? But when you think about June 19th, 1865, it had been 2 years since Lincoln had declared us free. But the masters of the time had decided that was, you know, they weren't going along with that. So when you think
Yeah,
about a day of emancipation for everybody, I think
yeah,
that's an American holiday. That's like America fully waking up and fully acknowledging the fact that like their enslaved African brothers and sisters were now finally free. All the atrocities that happened to us. We're one of the most forgiving races there is. Like, how could you not want to celebrate with us? It's an American declaration.
yeah.
You know, we should celebrate both because both are real. We want to commemorate the fact that like our entrepreneur white brothers and sisters had decided that like they didn't want to, you know, be taxed anymore, and they wanted their independence. So we celebrated with them. But man, on our day, it should be everybody's day. If you love us, then this is your holiday too. Juneteenth is your holiday too. And so I would encourage all people who are in senior leadership positions on this platform today, owners, CEOs as well, all C-suite positions. Like, get out there, get in front of this. At the end of the day, our founding fathers, they didn't look at us as citizens for real. We were a consumer base, and that's okay because that's what we are. That's how everyone looks at us. That's how all these companies look at us. We're a consumer base. Know that your consumer base is watching. Know that your consumer base understands, and get behind this because this is a beautiful thing. And while we're at it, look, man, vote whatever way you want to vote, but you should vote.
Hmm.
But the red and the blue in your business, there's no place for it. It should be green and green. Economy and ecology. Think about the planet and think about the economy of your community and your consumer base. Think about it. We're human beings. So, yes, we would love for you to take the Juneteenth pledge. But the other thing I wanted to say to you all is that, if if you'll take the black dollar in your company, great. If you'll accept the transgender dollar in your company, great. If you'll accept the undocumented workers dollar, awesome. But what if you no longer had access to it, right? What if your company could only survive off of a demographic that completely agrees with your partisan views. Could your business survive? Probably not. So that's a case for bad business, right? But if you're a company that considers your consumer base, then you would consider the fact that you should be thinking about human rights. And that's
Yeah.
green, right?
Yeah.
That to me is a case for good business. That's how we change this company. You all, everyone on this platform, and maybe several others, but everyone on this platform, pretty much, when I hear about the Milken like the Institute and how great this is and all the, you guys determine which way the wind blows in this nation. If you all were to decide right now today that you could put your partisan views to the side, your red and the blue to the side, and just go green, go economy and go ecology, this country changes. No Facebook, uh, 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 algorithm, all the stuff that's happening could ever get in the way of the power that is on this platform. So I say, yes, please sign the Juneteenth pledge, but at the same time, let's get ahead of this thing, man. We can get rid of the divisiveness if we just focus on human rights.
Yeah.
Transgender, black, undocumented worker, if they're undocumented, help them get documented. Like we can change these things. You guys and women and human beings have the power to move the earth. We can do this.
You probably don't remember this, but when I first met you, I was congratulating you about something and I don't remember what it was. And you just looked at me and responded and said, "It's not about me, it's just we." And it was really simple, but it was meaningful. And I've reflected on that a lot over this last year because, man, we could use a lot less me and a lot more we in
Yeah,
this country,
well,
particularly leading up to this election. And
listen, our phones are yes machines. They're like the most incredible personal assistants of all time that always tell you yes. Your phone tells you yes. Whatever your political slant is, the news feed says yes. You want
yeah,
to pay your bills? Yes. You want to call your family? Yes. You want to take selfies of the same angle every time? Yes. And it's made you not, it's like it's you we have a deficit of coping skills. So we have less patience with people that don't agree with us. And it causes you to be me, me, me when you need to turn that M upside down and go we. And I don't mean French. I mean us. Not
yeah,
there's not a them, there's a us. We are one species. When people say, man, 2020 has been so bad, 2020 didn't do anything to you. It's the people. It's us. Man,
hmm,
Father Time is looking at us going, what? What did I do? Like, I've given you time. Time is the most incredible present in the world. That's why they call it the present, because it's a gift. We need to remember that. When people say, oh, I can't wait for 2020 to be over. Man, can you imagine God, the universe, space, time, just looking at us going, what? What do you mean? Why are you trying to rush past me? I'm not doing this to you. You're doing this to yourselves. We have the power, you all. This is we do you know who we are? We've been in touch with Mars since the 70s. We are unstoppable. How can we just how can we let this divisiveness get in the way of everything that we're so capable? We're such a capable species. Do you understand? Like it's only one of us in this particular solar system. How are we letting this happen to us in this great country right now? This divisiveness. Why? Red or blue? I don't care how you vote. Vote for whatever you want, but stick together. Put human rights first. Green and green, not red and blue.
yeah. Focusing on the humanity that unites us, not those colors that divide. It's the message we all need to hear and more than hear, like abide by. There's so much more to talk about. We didn't even talk about health, which you mentioned at the beginning, and I know we could talk about that for hours. But I am so grateful that you made time to share this message that we need so desperately as a human race. And Pharrell, I just have to say, back in the day when we were kids, you were just a kid working at McDonald's that is now, you have a media empire, a music empire, a fashion empire. You are quintessential American dream. And you could be kicked back by your pool just living life and enjoying the fruits of all your success. But you have never stopped working and have continued to try to unite us and to make life better for everyone. And for that, I am so grateful. And thanks for taking time today to share this message. The theme of this conference this year is meeting the moment, and I can't think of a better person that represents that theme.
Well, I would super kind words. I would just say thank you to you, thank you to the institute, thank you to all the people on the platform. And if if it's about meeting the moment, you guys, now is the time. Now, right? 2 minutes ago are gone forever. 2 minutes from now haven't happened yet. What are you gonna do now? You all control which way the wind blows, right? I'm just trying to like build a boat with a sail to cast it in your wind, to sail in your winds. You all have the ability. Like, let this moment of now, let the power of now, like, let it sink in and realize what you can do. You can change the world. The most powerful individuals are on this platform. Your companies are nothing without you, right? Which means the world is nothing without you. What are you going to do with that moment? Are you meeting the moment right now? Like, what are you doing now? So, with that being said, thank you.
Mm, thank you, man. Sending you lots of love. Thank you. Thanks,
Blessings.
everybody.
Thank you.